So this is Mike O'Grady with Legislative Council. I'm going to review to you the legislative reports to House Ag that are designated as being due in 2025. Many of these are ongoing reports that you receive on an annual basis. And many of them, especially related to water quality, have been consolidated into one report. And you will see an example of that. And as your first report, there's a requirement in 10 VSA 1386 that A&R report to you and the Environment Committee about what they are doing to implement ecosystem restoration and specifically projects. So there are many reports that A&R is supposed to issue to the General Assembly on water quality, and what they have done is that they have consolidated all those reports, which is each one of these lines is a report requirement and statute on water quality. And they've consolidated all those requirements into what is called the Clean Water Initiative report. And the initiative report came out this week. Some of the graphs that I showed you yesterday from the overview were from prior Clean Water initiatives. You will see that they have similar ones. In this one, this is nymphomagog, the phosphorus load attributable to the different sectors. So very much the same type of information that we discussed yesterday. It is comprehensive in that it addresses all of the different water quality reports, financing, projects, restoration, status, et cetera. In some respects, it's an awesome resource because it puts all those things together. And in another respect, it's so long that you kind of lose that granular data you asked for in the specific statutory request. But it's still, it's still very helpful to understand the issues.
Where can we get that?
So I can send you, they usually have the link on it, but I can send you the link, but
It printed downstairs if you.
yeah, you can, that's what I did. It's 230 pages long. So Tony can print you out a print copy if you want it.
Yeah.
If we go to our committee page, Mike, under the reports and resources tab.
I don't know if that is about how your committee page is managed. And some chairs don't want to put all their reports on the committee page. So that's kind of up to you.
It's up to me. Okay.
Yeah.
I will.
We're required to. As a committee assistant, we're required to post every report that gets emailed to us.
Right. But just Senator Starr, as an example, he wouldn't always put every report because he didn't want that report up, kind of thing.
All right. Well, we want to follow the rules. As I look at the reports and resources tab right now, I'm seeing about a dozen different reports, and I think the top one is the one you're referring to. So,
yeah.
Anyway, for the time being,
So it's all there.
it's here. Yeah. If you go to our committee webpage, there's a tab, you'll see reports and resources.
I'm like Jen, I'm a hard copy guy. But I can also share this back home with my conservation district and whatnot, and because there's really pertinent facts to the goals we're all working to achieve.
Yeah.
So working off the table in front of you, the next 2 or 3 reports come from the Petroleum Cleanup Fund. So that is a program that basically serves as a way for the state to self-insure petroleum dealers and the tanks that they have. There's a federal requirement called LUST, the Leaking Underground Storage Tank Program, that requires anyone that has certain types of tanks to have insurance. When that requirement first came out, nobody would insure them. because they were leaking everywhere. So Vermont was one of the first states to create this kind of fund. It has revenue sources, it's fees on the dealers themselves and on the fuel itself that goes into this fund that's used to pay out when there is a spill, or a release that these petroleum dealers are basically responsible for. Why does it come to you? Because farmers have some of these tanks. They're either above ground. Most of the farmer underground tanks are gone. They're not required to pay into the revenue fund, but they do in some respects in what they pay on the assessment on diesel or et cetera. But then they are eligible for grants from the Petroleum Cleanup Fund to clean up releases. And so that's a big part of this program. It's very beneficial, not just to farmers, but to homeowners who have leaks in their above ground storage tanks. Above ground storage tanks are those that are in your basement. Even though they're may technically be underground, they are still considered above ground. And so that's what this program is for. Their report is also a pretty long report, but their report is usually about where they spent their money, and how it was spent. And there's a steering committee or advisory committee that works with them. There's usually a House member and a Senate member on it. I don't know who it is this year. But they're a pretty active, pretty proactive group, and they do help farmers and residences in replacing their tanks. And depending on the viability of the fund, they will come in and look for authority to give more money, which they did a couple of years ago. So I don't expect them to be coming in anytime real soon to up the amounts. It was about inflation. They were like, these amounts aren't enough to cover the expenses because of inflation. The next report is about the management governance process research and ongoing funding for Lake Champlain. And then right below that, an update on Lake Champlain Waters Research and Action Plan. That's a report from the Citizens Advisory Committee on Lake Champlain. That's a group that's separate from ANR. It works with the Lake Champlain Basin Program, which is a federally regional program that provides funding, education, and technical assistance for the cleanup of Lake Champlain. The Citizens Advisory Committee informs the Lake Champlain Basin Program and informs the governor and you about the state of the lake and things and policies and programs to be implemented for the state of the lake. They technically don't have to give you a report until June, but they will give it to you. They'll get you a report sometime early in the
They're
summer.
actually coming in at 1:00 to
Oh, really?
give us an update. I don't know if it's the report, but they've asked for time, and so they're here. Yeah.
2 senators and 2 House members sit in on that.
That is correct.
I was on it a few years back for a couple of years.
That's a very good point, because those legislators' terms are based on the biennium. So you probably need to appoint people to the Citizens Advisory Committee. Last year, I think it was Carrie Dolan and Carol Odie.
Yes.
Carrie retired. So there's at least one position that's probably open.
Speaker made the appointment. I guess it would be in conjunction with your.
Yeah, if anyone's interested in being part of that group after you hear today what they have to say, maybe everyone will be interested. Yeah.
David Allen's interested. Well, it's in Leland's, it really, in his backyard.
So moving on down the list, you're on the table that where the report is, it says 2721 Department of Forest and Parks. And this is about the forestry and forest products viability program. This report doesn't actually come from Forests and Parks. It comes from VHCB because they run the viability program. Their reporting requirement is not until January 31st. So you don't have this yet. That somehow they succeeded in getting an extra 2 weeks from most everyone else.
We're standing by.
Yep. And similarly, right underneath that, the report from VHEB on their activities. Again, it's not due. So it's, then there's this weird report that you're supposed to get from the Agency of Agriculture about renewable energy sources, particularly from farms and forests. I could not find this report. It's a mandate, but I don't know where it is. So that's
Like biomass plants?
yeah, I really don't know what it's about. I think it's about methane digesters, but it also could be about wind. Because
Solar.
right, and so I'm not really sure what it is because I can't find the report.
Could we look back and find it from a previous year just to see?
I tried that too, and I could not find it.
Can't find any evidence of it.
We-
I can't imagine.
When the agency comes in, which they're due, you could ask them.
Okay, yep, we will ask them.
So the next two reports on the table, you don't get anymore because they don't exist. The Government Accountability Committee has been repealed. The report on the Ag Forest Products Development Board, that doesn't exist anymore. And then the report
Board doesn't exist anymore.
don't exist
How long
anymore.
has that not been?
They got consolidated with WeLab like 10 years ago.
Okay,
The Dairy Promotion Council, they still exist, but they have not given you a report and they haven't given you a report in a while.
Okay,
So I don't know what the status of their ongoing work is.
can you say anything about the Dairy Promotion Council? Who they are?
They're basically a statutorily created council that is supposed to work with the agency to promote Vermont dairy in state and regionally.
they get checkoff dollars.
Yes, that's a like they're the dairy version of the beef checkoff. So they get money from their co-ops.
Bottom line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so there is no report for this year. Is this also one where we haven't seen a report recently?
I looked for one over the past couple of databases and I couldn't find one.
Okay. So that's sort of in the same category as the renewable energy.
Yeah. There might be a report out there. I just don't know where it is.
Okay.
Which number is that?
Post, 2972.
The
Get a lot of money.
The next report is the farm viability program. It says it's the reports from the agency, but that's going to come from DHCB as well, and that's January 31st. And then the next is state financial assistance awards for non-point source pollution programs. That's one of Laura DePietro's reports. She's put that report in. And it's right there on your committee website. You can see that it's also pretty extensive. And it gives all the programs that they funded and the farm agronomic practices, conservation reserve enhancement program, all of those projects and how the money was spent and for what. They usually do a good report. You're supposed to get the minutes of the Livestock Care Standards Advisory Council. The last time I checked, you hadn't received it yet. They do give you the report traditionally, and they're traditionally a little late. So I think that that's really just what's happened. They're just a little late.
Do they meet more than once a year?
I think they're required to meet twice a year. I don't see it. They haven't put it on. The next is the pest control compact. You don't get this. And they are the agency, and well, let me back up. There are these things called interstate compacts, where states enter into agreements to implement laws uniformly across the country. And one of those is the Pest Control Compact, which is about how to respond to infestations, outbreaks, et cetera, of pests, and how states can assist each other in when that happens. And what compacts usually require is for each state to enact, as there's in their statutes, the compact. And then as part of the compact, there's a board which runs the compact, and the board usually has a member from every state on it. And then the compact board is supposed to report to every state member about the activities of the compact from the previous year. Let's just say that there are a lot of compacts that don't meet the reporting requirement, or the report is very superficial. And this compact, they just don't report. You just don't get a report. Maybe the Vermont member of the board knows about what they're doing, but I don't even, it's supposed to be the secretary of natural resources or designee, which is usually the commissioner of Forest and Park, but I don't know what they're doing. You haven't received this report, I would say, in the past 10 years.
This is Title 6, Section 981.
Yeah, but it just says other.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, that's what it's the pest control compact. And I had to say, when we wrote it, they were not the easiest compact administrators to work with. They're like, don't change a word, don't change a period, don't change a comma.
Yeah.
Okay.
So would you be able to find out who the
Sure.
Vermont's member to the board is?
Yeah.
981.
981. So, yeah.
So the next one is A&R report to you on revising the basin plans. They have submitted that. It's on your committee webpage. So the Federal Clean Water Act requires all states to engage in a annual or a continual planning process to plan how each of the waters and the watersheds will be used, and what they're appropriate for, what water classification they may be. And so A&R sends out, they have basin plan, they have planners for all of the different basins. And they go out, they identify the waters, and they classify the waters or identify waters that could be upgraded or downgraded in classification.
There, Morgan?
Does Quebec take part in that?
No, this is purely a Federal Clean Water Act requirement, and it's for it's not for interboundary waters. And so they do that. What one of the things that the Basin Plan in Vermont does uniquely is it goes out and identifies projects that are supposed to help the state meet its water quality goals. And that either agencies, municipalities, or what are called the clean service water providers can do to help the state meet its water quality goals. Then the next report, you actually get two reports on this. You get a report from DEC about the MOU between the Agency of Ag and DEC. And then you get a report from the Agency of Ag about the MOU between Agency of Ag and DEC. And it's really to gauge how the two of them are working together, how the MOU is being implemented, how ag water quality laws are being enforced. As we just discussed yesterday, that's an issue with EPA. I have read the EPA's response to the corrective action letter. The chair was kind enough to send it to me last night. They want more detail from A&R. So that's really kind of where they are. They need to flesh out the proposal that they've offered to EPA. EPA had some pretty specific requirements. They want to see any legislative or regulatory change that is going to be offered. I would offer that that's up to you if you want to give that to EPA. The next thing that they've kind of made some, I wouldn't quite say ambiguous, but slightly veiled comments that they think the program should move entirely to A&R, but they also reference that that's only for those things that are within the Clean Water Act's jurisdiction. So there are things in Vermont and the Ag Water Quality Program that are in Federal Clean Water Act jurisdiction. So again, I think you still don't have clarity on what exactly that they would require. What they want is more detail from A&R about what the corrective action would be. And they did want it by March 18th. And I mean, that's a little awkward for you as policymakers. Doesn't give you a ton of time, depending on what A&R wants and whether it requires legislation. With that said, I've seen this body enact like significant legislation in a day, like chronic wasting disease. The deer herd was at risk. The agency came in and asked for it. We drafted it. You passed it. I mean, you can do things really, really quickly if there's the political will. So March 18th is going to be awkward, but I've seen you do very quick, very good work.
Representative Lipsky.
Thank you. Mike, under 1253D, the revising basin plans, there was an initiative 2 years ago that mandated that all municipalities and watersheds armor their ditches in their towns with 7-inch minus or 8-inch minus stone, trying to do sediments. And it was an unfunded sort of mandate, and some communities jumped on this. Was that part of this?
No, that was part of Act 64 from 2015. That's called the Municipal Roads General Permit. And it's not that. It requires all towns to manage their roads for stormwater runoff and consistent with a rule adopted by Agency of Natural Resources. And that required the lining roadside ditches with rocks, putting in check dams, putting in new culverts, all of that. That's in the Municipal Roads General Permit.
We don't get a report on the effectiveness of that.
It's partly, again, since I haven't read the whole.
I don't want to derail us.
But it has been reported on previously in the initiative report. I don't know if it's in this year's initiative. I haven't been able to review the whole.
On the MOUs, the two MOUs that we get from the two agencies, this might be a good year to ask the two of them to come in and just talk about their MOUs. Just because we're having this specific conversation about the EPA. And there's been, an ongoing conversation about how those two agencies work together. And this is sort of the formal way that they're addressing that. So that would be useful. And I don't think those are long reports typically.
No, they're not. They're only a few pages long. So the next would be the agency administration report on clean water funding. That's in the Clean Water Initiative report. So you have received it. They usually do a pretty good job about how much money is raised, how much money they got from the feds, how they've spent it. So it's a pretty good resource. So the next report is something called the Rural Economic Development Initiative. And you will see this on the table twice because originally READY, which was its short name, READY was adopted as session law, and the session law still exists. So the report still shows up on this table, but you will see on page 3 that you get that READY report, and because it was added to statute, you get that from BHCB, and because they run READY, and so you'll get that on January 31st from the BHCB report. READY is a program that was initially implemented to provide resources to rural towns to help them access grants and other monies that the towns might not have the staffing or the expertise to access. It generally has drawn down for towns exponentially more than you pay for it. And that was the goal. Right above that READY report on page 3, there's the Clean Water Board recommendation of allocation of funds from the Clean Water Fund and the Clean Water Initiative. The next one down is the DFR report on milk pricing. You may remember that there was a task force to revitalize the Vermont dairy industry a couple of years ago. And the prelude to that task force was US DFR and the treasurer to look at milk pricing to see whether or not it was equitable, fair, providing a adequate return to Vermont farmers. DFR kind of punted on that. They didn't want to make the recommendation, but they provided you significant information. The treasurer's report also didn't make a specific recommendation, but did note that there is inequity under the federal milk market order.
There is inequity or there is equity?
There is inequity because it hasn't been modified to address the increases in cost, which are obviously significant or can be significant for farms. There was an effort in the Farm Bill to tweak Federal Milk Market Order 1, and there was a process to do that, and they were going to tweak it, but I don't think they ever finalized that. Do you know if they finalized that?
We have, we're supposed to be voting on changing how Class 1 milk is priced.
Yeah.
And according to everybody in the industry, it's a no-brainer. And it will affect our milk price positively by maybe $1.60, $100. That's a start.
But it hasn't been finalized yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
And when you say we, Richard, you said.
So, yeah, we as farmers get to vote on it across the country.
As members of a co-op?
As licensed milk shippers.
Okay. Right?
Yeah, so this is a internal industry-wide thing and then it's gotta be adopted afterwards, so. You know, look, adopted by,
It's got, it's by the milk market.
Yeah.
They have to, Region 1 has to adopt it as a rule.
yeah. The milk market administrator.
This is federal.
Yeah.
And, little sketchy because one day a week, all the milk we produce is exported.
Of one out of
Where
seven.
does it go?
A lot of it goes to Mexico. And Southeast Asia. Some goes to Canada.
In liquid or powder?
Powder, cheese, butter.
Yeah,
Yeah, not liquid, not fluid.
yeah,
No, skim,
powder.
whole milk powder.
Yeah.
MPCs, milk protein concentrates.
But you won't be getting priced on the milk market order for that, right?
That affects our class 3 and class 4 pricing.
Okay,
And so right now, they use class 3 pricing to determine what class 1 pricing should be. And some times of the year or some years, class 4 is bringing more than class 3, but we don't see an increase in our price. And New England is more heavily dependent on class 1 milk than anyone, which is fluid milk, than any other area in the country, except for the Southeast.
milk pricing is very difficult to understand.
It's just about like trying to figure out the school tax rate.
Yeah,
To save them all.
it's pretty darn similar in
It
complexity.
is. That's in my letter I put out to the public every year.
And-
I'd say it's even more complicated, if that's possible, but. So is there a report, I guess?
No report.
No report. Hasn't been one
It hasn't been one since that first report.
in 2020?
Yeah,
Okay. And is so DFR is statutorily required to submit a report. What would they be reporting on?
it's basically on the effect of milk pricing on the farm economy.
Okay. Okay.
Should I move on?
I think yes.
Yeah, there's enough of that depressing topic.
So the next is the status of rulemaking on importation of food residuals for composting. Remember, a couple of years ago, you had that issue that some farmers were importing food residuals, food waste onto farms for both compost and for feed. And feed has specific restrictions on how it's authorized and what can be used for feed, like whether or not you can use certain food residuals for pigs or others because of vectors and other concerns. So you created a program to allow for the importation of food residuals, but you wanted to monitor how it was going. It's going okay.
We know that from the report?
Yeah,
Okay, so there is a report.
yeah.
Does this also concern the residuals brought in from out of state for, generation of power?
No, it is not. It's specifically those that are coming on to that are producing for compost.
Okay.
So that report is due on the 15th?
Yeah, well, you have it.
You do have it, okay. Oh, yeah, I see it there. Yeah.
So then the next is the policy recommendations of the Agricultural Innovation Board. Just as a refresher, the Agricultural Innovation Board replaced the Pesticide Study Committee. And their authority is a little bit broader than the Pesticide Study Committee. They have reported to you. Their report came in this week or January 15th.
Yeah.
And it's pretty good. They have some recommendations on things that you can do, the work that they've been doing. You know, I think that they're fulfilling their charge. The next is the amount of surface water the next is the Agency of Ed report on locally produced food. I could not find this. I'm not sure if you got it directly. Doesn't look like it's on your website. No, it's not.
It's like a farm to plate.
It's more about how locally produced food is being used by schools in the school food program.
Right, that's
I think
farm to school, yeah.
my reflection is last year, it might have been into February before we got the report.
Maybe,
Were you able to find one previous years or just?
yes, there have been previous reports. I could not find one this year.
Okay.
The next one down is A&R's report on surface water withdrawal. They're supposed to report to Ag, or Ag's supposed to report to A&R about agricultural surface water withdrawals, and then A&R is supposed to report to you. That report's not due until February 15th. They have been reporting since 2022.
Representative,
Mike, can you give us some detail about what type of surface water withdrawal would be used for? Streams or lakes?
So when you enacted the surface water withdrawal program, there's withdrawal with respect to farming for it's usually orchard crops and other crops, horticultural crops
Or irrigation?
for irrigation. And then there's public safety withdrawal. There's withdrawal for construction. There's withdrawal for dust control. So, previously if you were a construction company and you needed water for dust control, you could just back your tank truck up to a river and suck it out of the river because there was no requirement. And now that needs to be monitored.
Does that include snowmaking for ski areas?
Snowmaking has its own rule that is separate. One of the things that the surface water program did address, it's what's called interbasin transfer. There was some plans to have movement of water between certain river basins in the state, either for snowmaking or for other uses. And so surface interbasin transfers are generally not allowed.
Representative Martin.
Oh, yeah, that was my question about transfer from one basin to another, so you explained it.
You will not be taking Connecticut River water and pumping it over to Brockton, all right? This isn't Colorado and California.
So the next one down is the plan to implement the conservation goals of conservation design, Act 59 from 2023. You've received that? I don't know if it's on your committee page though.
Is that the 30 by 30?
Yeah, that's 30 by 30.
Okay.
That's it's been submitted, but I don't know if it look like it's on the committee page, but that I have it here. Somewhere.
It gets posted on the committee page because Sidonia is alerted to its delivery somehow. How do you find out about them,
The
Sidonia?
reports,
Yeah,
they get emailed to me. So every time there's a report, it gets emailed to the committee assistant and they're asked to post it on the committee page.
okay.
And that's like part of our protocol.
So,
But you, yeah. You haven't received that, sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Sounds like Michael has received it, but you haven't yet.
Which one specifically? The inventory?
It's the Act 59 inventory report, status report, whatever you want to call
Is
it.
does it get submitted to us statutorily?
Yes, Act 59 status
Yeah.
report, yeah. Because part of that report was about how to address ag land for the purposes of the conservation goal. Not that it would include ag land, but there was going to be that recommendation.
Representative Nelson?
Yeah, Chairman, thank you. There's legislation maybe coming on that will really help this. You've heard of the current use lands, which are flexible and fluid, I understand, but the largest block in conservation that, through current use, forestry. There's a lot of timberland that's in current use that could be,
I do think Ellen might have gotten this request. Act 59 is in Ellen's subject matter. I don't totally recall if she got the request or not. Sometimes the requests are made outside of the staff meeting, so I don't know. The next is the DFR report on the results of the water quality assistance pilot program. I have not seen that report. Have you seen that report? That's due. But I cannot find it.
Okay, and I don't see it on our page.
And the timber trespass report has come in from the AG. I haven't had time to download or to read it yet. That long. But it's there.
I think just maybe before you came in, we were talking about that report and are looking forward to hearing from the AG's office in a couple of weeks.
And Megan Harrith was the assistant AG that was involved in drafting the law. Looks like she put together the report.
So can we just go back? Is that the end then, Mike?
No, it's the end of the table that you have, but I want to look at some of the reports that are on your, they're partly on this table, which is on the committee website, and just partly on the report tab on your website. So the first of those is the 2024 Animal Cruelty Investigation Advisory Board report. So that you may remember you created an animal welfare division last year, but it only had one person. That person's given a year basically to come up with a plan and to come back to you to develop how to more comprehensively implement animal welfare laws in the state. Prior to that, there was the Animal Cruelty Investigation Advisory Board, and they do a report and their recommendations. They're continuing to do their report until the Animal Welfare Division is more stood up. And so they gave you that report last week. And then the next one that was on here, that the Sustainable Jobs Fund, you get generally a report from them. That came in Tuesday. I did not know it had come in. But it looks like they are meeting their reporting requirement. I haven't even looked at that yet, so, but I just wanted to note that it's there. And that includes the farm to plate report and the farm products program report and a food security component as well.
Why aren't those two on this grid? Is there something different about them?
I don't know why they're not on the grid.
Okay,
Should be there. And there's one other report. No, I think we hit it. We did them all. Oh, no, there's on this table on when the Agency of Ag gets involved in a 248 PUC commission proceeding, they are supposed to report to you about that and the expenses that they allocated to do that. It's a conditional report. You only get it when it happens, so you don't get it all the time. And so that's why they did something in 2024 that required expenditures related to a 248 proceeding, and they reported to you.
What's a 248?
248 is the PUC certificate to generate electricity.
Okay, yeah.
so that other piece of paper that you were just holding up is available. We can see that on our webpage.
Yes, and you can also just go to the homepage of the legislature and go to the Find Legislative Reports tab, and then just put in agriculture, and you'll get this.
Okay. Good. So I'm wondering if we could just go back and be sure that we're all clear on which reports we haven't received, so that we can ask Sedona to follow up and see if there is a report, and if not, what the explanation is.
Sure.
And recognizing that some of them aren't due yet.
Right.
So those are fine, the HTB ones.
Okay, so just the ones that aren't due.
Ones that have, that are due, but haven't come in, I guess.
Okay. So I would start with the Dairy Promotion Council.
That's on the second page.
Yeah.
Just four or five down. Yeah. What about the top one on the second page? I put a question mark on that.
Oh, yes, the DPS, the Plan for Renewable Energy Sources, particularly from farms.
Yeah.
I don't know where that one is right now.
Okay, and then the Dairy Promotion Council.
I'm just gonna check the Dairy Promotion Council's authority this yesterday, but I just want to double check. Yeah, they're supposed to submit to you annually before January 15th. The next would be the Livestock Care Standards Advisory Council, their minutes. As I said, they usually submit, but they're sometimes late. I think that's basically what's the issue there. You did not receive the pest control compact report, and I doubt you will ever receive another one.
Okay, but we'll add, and you can help us by letting. us
Yeah,
know
who that person is.
Yep.
So the next would be the DFR report on milk pricing. I just think they probably consider that as a one-time report. But I'm pretty sure it says annually, and I don't think they'll want to continue reporting.
If that's the case, we can have a conversation about whether we feel there's any strong need to see any further reporting. And then if we collectively decide there isn't, we could put a change into the,
Yeah, I mean, you will get, there is, well, I don't know if the government ops committee is going to do the reports bill, but usually there's a reports bill every biennium where you are asked if you want reports to be struck. Because there's a provision in law that says, unless you provide otherwise, reports should be repealed after 5 years with the approval of the subject matter committee.
okay. Representative Nelson.
Perhaps, Chairman Murphy, it's pertinent when changes occur that they give us a report. You know, there's been no change for the last 15 or 20 years. You know, the first economic times do create change. Something they should be watching and looking at. And with this change potentially coming, they should look at that again.
It makes sense.
So the next that you hadn't received yet was locally produced food.
Yep.
And that, I think you indicated that they were a little late last year on that. So can probably reach out to Rosie or whomever is working with Rosie on that.
Do that.
Um,
And the Act 59,
Act 59, yeah.
okay. And then the next.
Well,
one.
you got Act 50, the Act 59 has, they submitted a report, they just didn't submit it to you.
Okay. Then the next one, we don't know if there is a report.
Water Quality Assistance Pilot Program, I don't know what that is.
Is that that's the logging, $1 million
Yep.
program, okay,
Yeah.
so that may just not have gotten far enough along. All right, we'll check it.
It hasn't been implemented.
Mike, it was just occurring to me that I got a message in December from the chair of the now defunct Natural Resources Board, explaining that they didn't have a report ready that was due on December 15th for us, and that it would be coming later in the year. So that's the report on, it was part of Act, H 687, I don't remember what the Act number was. It was a wood products manufacturers permitting study. And I'm pretty sure it was supposed to come to us. So I just want to make a note of that while I'm thinking of it, that we add that to the list. We'll be delivering it at some point, the new board.
Yeah, I don't, they're the Land Use Review Board, right?
Or,
They don't have any reports submitted to the General Assembly so far.
yeah, okay. All right, so unless anybody knows of anything else that we were expecting to receive, consider this an exhaustive list. We have time in our schedule as early as next week, I think still a couple of time slots. We could, theory, ask to have someone come in and report on any of these reports, give us a presentation on any of these reports. So I'm just wondering if anybody in the committee has something that you think this committee should hear from either right away or at some point. I'm inclined to treat these reports as something that it's worth our time to go through. We've asked somebody to take the time to put the report together. And I think it therefore deserves our attention. And we haven't always been able to do that. So I want to try and carve out time.
Thank you, Chairman. The last report that you inquired to Mike about, the small mills and the rural caucus strongly advocated for, and I believe this committee for it as well, that I'd like to hear the status of that or progress on that.
Yeah, okay.
Because that's come up a lot in discussion in my world.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think the board was the statute, the legislation we passed last year instructed the new board to send us a report by the middle of December. And the board itself, the board members hadn't even been appointed at that point. So it was, I don't think, yeah, so I don't think that we can point to anybody and say, why haven't you done this yet? They haven't been appointed. But we can, and to the extent that they have been appointed, we could certainly have the chair come in and get an introduction and maybe get an update on the status. And I don't know, I guess maybe I do know who the chair of that board is, but in any case, we can confirm that. And
was that lumped into the Housing and Act 250
it was in that bill.
revision?
Yeah, it was in that bill.
It
Yeah,
was in that bill.
the bill. Yeah.
That's one.
Yeah.
Amendments.
Representative Boston.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm interested in the report on how much local food is going into schools, but it sounds like since that hasn't come in yet, I don't know if we should wait and see if it's just gonna come and then we have the data, or if it's helpful to nudge them a bit and have them come talk directly, but I would be interested to hear more about that, and also how we can get local food in other places too.
Good. Yes, I will reach out and just we can check and see what where they are with it, and mention that we are, certainly interested in hearing about it as soon as it's available. Yeah.
And
Representative.
just to respond to Michelle's question, some of the most riveting reporting we experienced was about food to school production from last session, and it really varied. Bellows Falls, your Wyndham County, there were several that were outperforming districts all over the state. They may be at 31 or 32% farm to school, first in the state. Others were maybe 25. They were targeting an average of 15 or a minimum of 15%. So that testimony, I'm sure, is coming, and that was really important testimony for us.
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah, it's a good program. Jennifer.
Along those lines, I just want, with the conversation, obviously, at the House floor last night with the redistricting and all that, I wonder if eventually having a conversation with, with different districts that they're going to be proposing, if how that might affect, that same
Oh, that's a good
conversation.
question.
And making sure that local food is a priority still, for sure. But and then and I would like to hear from ANR, since that's such a comprehensive report on water quality, particularly with regard to personally, with water treatment facilities or wastewater treatment facilities. And the issues that we're looking at with PFAS this year. Anybody, I don't know if there's a particular person at ANR that would speak more into that with regard, because I know that's such a large document, and I'm sure there's some people that are focused on one part and not the other, but I think the wastewater treatment is a big topic and and potentially how it relates to PFAS.
Good. Any other things that rise to the top or ought to rise to the top? Okay. Mike, did you have anything else?
No, not right now.
Was there anything else that you wanted to say about the EPA's communication to the state?
Well, I would think that you need to talk to A&R about how they're going to flesh out their proposal and what legislation they will need. It's probably premature to ask for it now because they got that letter last Friday.
Yeah.
But I know they have ideas about what they think needs to legislatively change. Again, this is that policy tension between what the agencies want to do and what the advocates want to do. I have a pretty good idea of what you would need to do for what the advocates want to do, because I've drafted that bill before in prior bienniums. And it's a big bill. It's like 70 pages because you have to move all of the authority. You have to kind of tweak the existing agency authority. You have to make decisions about what staffing's leaving, what's staying. So that's above my position. Like what you want to do with that. That's the call you all have to make.
Okay, good. All right, good. Well, I think we're gonna take a break here. Let's come back and we can continue this conversation without Mike. You probably have to be somewhere else now, Mike.
I have to go down and listen to Secretary Moore.
Please send our greetings.